I heard the machine's alarm go quiet, and I heard my own son tell a nurse to leave it that way. That's the sentence that started the end of my old life, and the beginning of the only version of it I actually wanted. But let me back up, because you deserve to know how a man builds 40 years of trust and loses it in the space of one hospital room. My name is Walter Reyes. I'm 61 years old. I live outside Charleston, South Carolina, in a neighborhood called Whitfield Point, the kind of place with oak trees older than the country and driveways too long for the mail carrier's taste. I started a commercial roofing company, Reyes Roofing and Restoration, in 1994 out of the back of a Ford. I still own 20 years later, out of stubbornness more than sentiment. By last year we had 31 crews, contracts with half the school districts in the Low Country, and a name people trusted enough to put on a 30-year warranty. My wife, Dana, 57, married me back when I had nothing but calluses and a business plan written on a diner placemat. We'd been married 33 years. My son, Bryce, 30, ran our estimating department, which mostly meant he showed up late and left early, but I told myself he'd grow into it. My daughter, Marissa, 27, taught third grade in North Charleston and called me every couple of weeks, usually right after rent was due. And then there was Todd, 38, Dana's nephew, who I'd taken in when his own parents fell apart and put through trade school on my dime, made him operations manager, treated him like the older son I never had. None of that blood mattered to me. I raised that boy from 16. I loved him the same. It was a Thursday in early spring. I'd been up on a job site off Ashley River Road, inspecting a school roof after a storm, when a ladder I'd climbed 1,000 times before finally decided it had had enough of me. 22 feet. I don't remember the fall. I remember the sky, and then I remember nothing, and then I remember voices. Welcome to the channel, by the way. If this is your first time here, hit subscribe, and if you've been with me a while, you already know this story's going to take you somewhere. Stay to the end. Here's something nobody tells you about being unconscious in a hospital bed with a fractured skull and a body that won't listen to you anymore. It isn't sleep. It's worse than sleep. You're in there, behind your own eyes, and you can hear every single word spoken over you like you're already part of the furniture. Roper St. Francis, ICU, 4th floor. I know because a nurse said it out loud while checking a monitor, and I filed it away because filing things away was the only thing I could still do. The first voice I recognized was the doctor's, then Dana's. He's stable for now, the doctor said. There's swelling we're watching closely. If it doesn't come down in the next 48 hours, we may be looking at permanent damage, or worse. And if it comes to worse? Dana asked. Steady, almost businesslike. Then we'd talk about your wishes regarding resuscitation, life support, that kind of decision. A pause. Then Dana again, quiet, like she was reading off a grocery list. He always told me he wouldn't want to be kept alive like that. Machines and tubes and nothing left of him. If his heart stops, I don't want you to bring him back. I have never said that sentence in my life. Not once. Not to her, not to anyone. That's right, Bryce added, fast, like he'd rehearsed it in the hallway. Dad always said he'd rather go than be a burden on anybody. A burden. My own son used the word burden about me while I was lying 3 feet from him with a fractured skull, and he said it the way you'd describe a piece of furniture that didn't fit anymore. He's 61, Dana told the doctor. He's had a good full life. He'd hate for us to suffer watching him linger. 61 is a good, full life. My wife of 33 years said that like she was reading a weather report. I heard the sharp little click of a pen. She signed something. I didn't need to see it to know what it was. Don't move, I told myself. Don't so much as twitch a finger. Whatever you do, just listen. That instinct probably did more for me than any doctor in that building. They came back that evening, all 3 of them, plus Todd. I heard the door, the scrape of chairs. Somebody unwrapping a granola bar like this was a waiting room and not the place where their father might die. He looks the same, Marissa said. Not cruel, just tired. They're saying maybe another 2 days before we know anything, Dana told her. 2 days. Marissa sighed, and it wasn't sadness. It was inconvenience. I've got parent-teacher conferences all week, Mom. I can't keep driving out here. Nobody's asking you to rearrange your whole life, Bryce said. He never rearranged his for me, Marissa snapped back. Every recital, every game, it was always the business. Now I'm supposed to drop everything? She wasn't entirely wrong. I worked more than I should have. But I was building something for them. All of them. Todd spoke next, calm, the same tone he used running our morning job briefings. He made it pretty clear over the years he never wanted to be a burden on the family. I think we honor that. Exactly, Bryce said. Then, quieter, like he thought the machines would eat the sound. Once probate clears, the trust distributes automatically. I saw the paperwork in his office last Christmas. I know roughly what my share looks like. Bryce. Dana's voice again, that soft warning reflex. I'm just saying it's not exactly a secret. Silence. My own son had gone through my private files and already penciled my death into whatever mental calendar he kept for himself. While I lay there breathing through a tube, I was a line item to him. A maturity date on a bond. I don't have the words for what that does to a man, so I won't pretend I do. Over the next several days, I heard things I will carry to my grave. I heard Bryce on his phone, stepped just far enough into the hallway that he must have figured I couldn't hear him, though of course I could hear everything. Yeah, he's not looking good. Doctors think it's probably going the wrong way. Hey, can you get me numbers on that lot out by Kiowa? I might have some capital coming through soon. Capital. His father, dying 12 feet away, reduced to capital. I heard Marissa tell Dana that the Whitfield Point house was way too much space for one person, and maybe Mom should think about something smaller once things settled. Once things settled. Like I was weather passing through. And I heard Todd, quiet, efficient Todd, the boy I pulled out of a bad situation and gave a career, a truck, a life, tell Dana, the cleaner we handle the transition at the company, the better. I already know where everything is. Every account, every contract. I know you do, Todd. I didn't know yet exactly what that meant, but something in my stomach went cold and stayed there. On day 6, I opened my eyes. The nurse gasped, called for the doctor, and suddenly the room was full of noise and relief and people who hadn't expected to be celebrating. I answered every question they threw at me. The date, the president, squeezed my hand, and 20 minutes later, Dana walked through that door, and her face did something complicated. Real relief, I'll give her that. But underneath it, something else. Something that vanished so fast I nearly convinced myself I'd imagined it. She hugged me. She cried. I was so scared. I was going to lose you. I know, I told her. I'm the luckiest man alive to have you. Every word out of my mouth was a lie. And for the first time in 33 years of marriage, that didn't bother me one bit. They sent me home 4 days later. Bryce carried my bag in. Marissa had stocked the fridge, which in 27 years I could count on one hand. Todd stood in my own kitchen and said, "Don't even think about the company, Walt. We've got it covered." "Thank you, son," I said. Son, the word sat in my mouth like a stone. I played my part well. Dizzy, forgetful, tired. A grateful old man, just glad to be alive, exactly the way they needed to see me. Dana believed it instantly, which told me plenty about how closely she'd actually been watching me the last few years. The first call I made, once I could drive again, wasn't to our family attorney, a man named Curtis Boyd who'd handled our paperwork for 2 decades, and who I now suspected had probably had a very friendly lunch with my wife recently. I found someone new. A referral from an old supplier. Her name was Renata Hale, an estate and fraud attorney with an office off Savannah Highway. No fancy lobby, no wasted time. I sat across from her and said, "I need to know if my family has been stealing from me, and I need you to start from the assumption that they have." She didn't blink. "Then let's find out." The second call was to a private investigator named Doug Marsh, who worked out of a strip mall office in West Ashley and drove the most forgettable Toyota I'd ever seen in my life. I told him everything: the hospital room, Bryce, and the land out by Kiowa. Todd's, "I know where everything is," Dana's voice ordering the doctor not to bring me back. Doug wrote it all down without a single change in his expression, then asked how long Dana and I had been married. 33 years, I said. He just nodded and kept writing. Renata called me on a Tuesday morning while Dana was at her Pilates class. "Walter, I need you sitting down for this." I drove myself to her office for the first time since the accident. She had a folder in front of her thick enough to double as a doorstop. "Your operations manager," she said, has been moving company funds for a little over 2 years. $280,000. Routed through inflated equipment invoices, ghost subcontractors, and a shell company called Palmetto Materials Group, registered out of Delaware, completely invisible unless you already knew where to look. "He's your nephew?" she asked. I raised him like a son. His stated reasoning, from some internal messages we recovered, was that he was, quote, securing his position in case the will didn't favor him, since he wasn't your blood. I sat with that a long moment. I had paid off Todd's truck. I had put him through certification courses out of my own pocket. I had taken him fishing off Folly Beach every summer since he was 17. I told that boy to his face more than once, "You're my son, you never have to worry." And he robbed me anyway. "There's more," Renata said. Of course there was. Dana co-signed on 9 of the transfers. She has authority on the corporate accounts. Several of these transactions physically couldn't have gone through without her signature. My wife hadn't only stood at my hospital bed and told a doctor to let me die. She'd been signing off on her nephew stealing from the company I'd bled for since 1994. I didn't cry. I want to be honest about that. I sat in Renata Hale's office off Savannah Highway and felt something close, quiet, and final, like a door. "What about property?" I asked. "Anything with the properties." She flipped to another tab. Months before the accident, Dana had helped Todd draft a forged power of attorney, her real signature paired with a convincing forgery of mine. The moment it looked like I might not wake up, he'd used it to file a quitclaim deed at the county register, putting his own name on the title of both the Whitfield Point House and the roofing company's main warehouse on Rivers Avenue. He moved fast, Renata said. He was ready. The forensic handwriting analysis already confirms the signature's fraudulent. I can have a suit filed within the week to freeze both properties and strip his name off the deeds entirely. She paused. But the second we file, he's served, and he knows we're onto him. Then we hold it, I said. Until when? I thought about the 40th anniversary trip Dana had been talking about for months. Except we both knew she meant the vow renewal ceremony she'd already started planning. Everyone gathered in one place, smiling for a camera. "There's a renewal ceremony coming up," I said. "File it the Monday after." Doug Marsh called 2 days later. I was sitting on my back porch, watching the marsh grass move with nothing better to do, when my phone buzzed. "You want to hear about the affair," he said, not a question. "Tell me." Guy's name is Kyle Preston, 31. Personal trainer at a gym off Savannah Highway. Your wife's been seeing him for about 16 months. 16 months ago, Dana and I had gone to a Christmas party at the Hendersons' place 2 doors down. She wore the green dress I always liked. We danced badly to a song neither of us knew. She kissed me at midnight and told me this was going to be our best year yet. 3 weeks later, she signed up for personal training sessions. I put the phone down on the armrest and stared at the marsh until the light changed. 33 years. Not 33 bad ones either. We'd had real years. Good ones. In spite of the long hours and the missed dinners. I wasn't some man who forgot birthdays and hid behind work. I showed up. I built a life. And she was quietly redistributing it among her nephew and her gym instructor while I was learning to walk again. I reached out to a woman named Priya Nair, who'd run our accounting department for 9 years before Bryce, in one of his rare uses of authority, had her sidelined over what he called a difference in communication style, which really meant she'd caught him padding his expense reports, and he didn't appreciate being corrected. She agreed to meet me at a coffee shop on King Street. I flagged those vendor invoices 18 months ago. She told me before I'd even sat down. Bryce told me to drop it. But it wasn't Bryce running the scheme. It was Todd, and your daughter. I paused, with the cup halfway to my mouth. "Marissa?" "Todd was routing cash through Palmetto Materials," Priya said, sliding a flash drive across the table. "But look at the secondary transfers. Monthly payments, straight into an account tied to Marissa's classroom supply nonprofit. She found out what Todd and your wife were doing about a year ago. Instead of coming to you, she asked for a cut to stay quiet. She's been funding half her life off money stolen from your company." Priya became my inside source over the following weeks, handing me records she'd quietly kept as backup for years, because she was exactly that thorough. Together, we rebuilt the entire timeline. Dates, amounts, approvals, all of it cross-referenced. $280,000, over 2 years, 31 separate transactions. While I was climbing ladders in the Charleston heat thinking I was building something to hand down to them one day. I was. I just didn't know I was building it for them to take early. By the end of 6 weeks, here's what sat in Renata's office. Locked and ready, Dana, 16 months deep in an affair, co-signer on Todd's fraud, co-author of a forged power of attorney, the woman who told a doctor not to revive her husband. Todd, 280,000 stolen, forged deeds on 2 properties, the man who told that same doctor his uncle wouldn't want to be a burden. Bryce, no knowledge of the fraud or the affair, but a son who sat in an ICU room talking about capital and land near Kiowa, who wanted his inheritance early and told a doctor his father wouldn't want to linger. Marissa, who knew about the theft for a year, took her cut and said nothing while her father lay unconscious 12 feet away. I quietly moved $810,000 out of our joint savings, money Dana never once thought to check on, into a new account at a bank we'd never used together. Every dollar of it earned honestly, under my name, from distributions I'd taken from my own company for 20 years. I had a new will drawn up. The old one had been generous. This one was going to teach a lesson instead. I want you to understand something about me. I'm not a man who runs on anger. I build roofs for a living. I like things sequenced, level, load-bearing. What I was planning wasn't rage. It was structural, and it needed one more piece before it could hold weight. The vow renewal was 8 days out. Dana had been talking about it for months, cheerful over dinner, while I smiled at the woman who'd signed away my company's money to her nephew. "Let's really do it up," she said. "Invite everyone." "Absolutely," I told her. "Let's make it a night to remember." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I squeezed back. Every single one of them was going to be under that tent, and every single one of them was going to leave with exactly what they'd earned. If you've made it this far, drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from tonight. This next part is the reason I started telling this story. Dana planned the whole evening herself. She sent invitations to 20 neighbors from Whitfield Point, old friends from church, our pastor from Seacoast, and a caterer off King Street who did the good food, the kind that costs real money. She rented a white tent for the backyard, string lights, a small dance floor. 3 days before, I found a banner rolled up in the garage. 33 years, the Ray's family. I stood there, staring at it longer than I care to admit. The evening itself came in warm and soft, the kind of low-country night where the humidity finally breaks around sunset and the whole yard smells like jasmine. Bryce arrived first, dressed like he was headed to a golf resort, which was more or less his permanent state. He clapped me on the shoulder. "Looking sharp, old man. You've really bounced back." "Best I've felt in years," I told him. He had no idea how true that was. Marissa came next, hugged her mother, handed me a card. Inside she'd written, "So glad you're still here, Dad. Love you always." I looked at her handwriting a long moment and thought about a little girl who used to fall asleep in my truck on the way home from practice and wondered exactly where that girl had gone. Todd arrived last, the way he always did, in a navy blazer, shaking my hand with both of his, the way men do when they're performing warmth instead of feeling it. 33 years, Walt. That's really something. It really is, I said. I've got something for everybody tonight. A little gift. He laughed like it was a joke. It wasn't. By 8, the yard was full. Glasses were clinking. The string lights had come on. Dana moved through the crowd in that same green dress in a way that suggested a woman with absolutely nothing to hide. Renata Hale was parked on the street 2 houses down with a folder on her passenger seat. Doug Marsh had made a call earlier that afternoon on my behalf. 2 Charleston County deputies were waiting in an unmarked car around the corner. Everything was exactly where it needed to be. I walked to the center of the tent, picked up a fork, and tapped it against my glass. "Can I have everyone's attention for just a minute?" The yard went quiet. Dana turned toward me and smiled. That warm, public smile she wore like a piece of jewelry. Bryce raised his glass. Marissa turned around. Todd crossed his arms and watched. 20 neighbors, my pastor, my family, an audience. Good. 33 years. I started. That's a long time to build something with people. You sacrifice. You work. You tell yourself it's all worth it in the end. A few people nodded. Somebody murmured, "That's right. Nearly dying has a way of clearing your head." I continued. When I was lying in that ICU bed at Roper, unable to move or speak, I had nothing to do but listen, and I heard things I will never forget. Things that changed the way I see every person standing in this yard tonight. Dana's head tilted slightly. The smile stayed frozen in place, but something behind her eyes shifted. There it is. She felt it too. So tonight, on our anniversary, in front of everyone who's watched us build this family, I want to share what I learned. I reached down to the table beside me, 4 envelopes, each with a name written in my own handwriting. Bryce. My son stepped forward, bourbon still in hand, wearing the loose smile of a man expecting good news. He opened his envelope. Inside was a printed transcript of his own voice from that hospital room, every word about capital and land near Kiowa, and beneath it, a termination letter from Reyes Roofing, effective that night, his company truck already reported and his corporate card already frozen. And in case you're wondering about the future, I said, my new will leaves you exactly $2,000. Consider it seed capital. Marissa. She walked over slowly, arms crossed, and took her envelope like it might bite her. Inside was her section of the transcript, and beneath it, a printout of the transfers from Palmetto Materials into her nonprofit's account, dates highlighted. You knew for a year, I told her, my voice level. You knew. And instead of telling me, you took a cut to stay quiet. Her mouth opened, and nothing came out. Same as your brother. $2,000. Spend it wisely. Todd. I didn't hand him an envelope. I just looked at him. Your own father couldn't be bothered to raise you. I gave you a home, a career, a truck, my last name at every job site whether you'd earned it that day or not. And for 2 years, you stole from me. $280,000. 31 transactions, a forged power of attorney with my wife's help, and my name faked onto the deeds of my own house and my own warehouse. And when I woke up, you were annoyed. His jaw tightened. Whatever you think you have. I don't think, I said. I know. My attorney filed a criminal complaint for forgery and embezzlement with the sheriff's office this morning. The warrant's signed. I glanced toward the side gate. Come on in. 2 deputies in plain clothes stepped through. The yard made a sound I still can't fully describe, somewhere between a gasp and total silence. Dana. My wife stood frozen in her green dress. In the backyard she decorated herself, in front of every person in her social world, and for the first time in 33 years, she had absolutely nothing to say. I handed her the last envelope myself. Inside, Doug's surveillance report, 16 months of dates and a gym parking lot. Beneath that, the forged power of attorney, her real signature next to a fake version of mine, and underneath all of it, divorce papers, already filed. You couldn't wait 8 more days, I said quietly. You told a doctor I was 61, and that was reason enough to let me go. You helped forge my name onto my own house, while I couldn't even lift a hand to stop you. My settlement offer is the rental property on James Island. Take it. Or take your chances explaining a fraud timeline to a judge. She looked at the banner, still hanging above us. 33 years. The Reyes family. She didn't say a word. I want to be clear. I never raised my voice once that whole night. I didn't need to. I want to thank everybody for coming, I said to the yard, and I meant it. The food's excellent. I picked it myself. Please, eat. I set my glass down, buttoned my jacket, and walked through the house and out the front door into the warm dark. My truck had been packed since Wednesday. I pulled out of Whitfield Point for the last time, turned onto the highway, and just drove. My phone buzzed once on the seat. Dana. I didn't answer. A few miles down the road, I pulled over, typed 1 line, and hit send. I heard every word. Then I turned the phone off, rolled the windows down, and kept driving. They wanted me gone. Instead, I gave them the truth, in front of everyone who ever mattered to them. If you enjoyed this one, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and tell me where you're watching from tonight. I'll see you in the next story.